Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Day 3 of 9 candles. Is that right? Yes, because it's August 2nd. And today is our Linda De Gonzalez.
Hi, everybody.
Again, I want to ask you to please forgive me. I'm not very good in the chat. But anything that Linda catches, just, bring it up. Because I don't know how to make her a co-host yet, and it's too complicated, and there wasn't enough time before the show. So here we go. So
We're all learning. We're all learning, Diana.
Before we get started with the incantation and the candle lighting, what's going on with you, for you? How are things? Has Brenda gotten better? And what's new?
Brenda's home.
Hey, Brenda, nice hand.
Thank you. Brenda's home.
Let me pet it. Oh, White Wolf. It's White Fang. Black Tooth and White Fang, right?
Brenda's home. I'm so happy. It's such a relief. She's much improved. We went out for a celebration dinner last night and had a good time and brought home like boxes of leftover food.
Oh, good.
And so we'll be able to enjoy that meal again tonight and maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure. And anyway, yeah, we had a good time. And today we're going to go to the beach.
Awesome. And Brenda, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate it.
So, and again, before we get started, there are a couple of comedy of errors, right? There wasn't one on the show when I was on with Nancy Jean. So what I'd like to recap there is the fact that that was the beginning of the journey. And it was entering the portal, because the portal is just not on 8/8. That's the closing day. That's when we're exiting. So we began and trying to figure out how to use ley lines, dowsing rods, pendulums, and other elementals that you may stumble upon along that path as a, I don't want to say tool, because this is energy work. This is something more than energy, because this is an organic, living, breathing, in its own realm fashion. So how do we work with that energy to help us manifest? And as you know, the theme of these 9 candles is to reunite the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And then yesterday with Allie, there were glitches. She is in a campground, and so she only had, that free space you talk about. Well, that's all she had in order to have her internet. And so there were times that she glitched out. And my brother came to help me do the heavy work that I haven't been able to do outside. And I said to him, the show starts at 4. And he goes, okay. And he lets his dog in and he leaves. And it left his brain. The sound man, the guitarist, is mowing the lawn through the whole show right outside this door. Didn't understand that, Yeah. And there's no screaming at him or banging on the window, because he's on the riding lawnmower and he's a guitarist who has stood in front of a 30, 40-foot sound column for 40 years, Can't hear you.
Yeah.
So those are the comedies of errors. But after I thought about that yesterday was Lamas, Luganasad. And in that, it is the first harvest. And what was he doing? He was cutting the grass, but he was removing overgrowth, the first harvest. And as I ride through the neighborhood, which isn't much of a neighborhood, the fields have shown the first harvest. There's a horse ranch across the street, and all of their alfalfa and hay has been cut. and standing there in those great big rolls, which is just, it's so refreshing because the air is so full of that. So now, with that having been said, let's see what we can find out about women's handiwork and why it's called women's handiwork, and where we can go with all of this to use this for greater understanding of how to manifest this intention of the reuniting of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, not just in gender, but also what exists inside of us. So let's start by lighting our candles.
Was I supposed to have a candle to light too?
Well, it is 9 candles, honey.
Do I get one of my? Thank you. I can't have any flame in the house
That's
or
okay.
smoke because
That's understood. It's understood.
I do have
Whatever you have.
LED candles, and I will light one now. Brenda's just gone to fetch it for me off of the.
Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you. Okay, this is my special candle holder and my.
Perfect.
No, you can't even tell that it's lit, can you? Oh well, it's lit.
That's what matters. It's how you're doing it. It is intention.
Yeah.
And there is moments for everyone where you can't really get to a candle. That doesn't mean you don't have the flame light inside of you.
That's right.
So it's time for the incantation. And not sure if you know this, but the opening of this incantation was written during World War II by James Dillett Freeman. And if you follow Mary Ann from Revealing Light, she says this prayer quite often. And it's so appropriate all the time, but especially with the energies that we're working with right now. So here we go. Let's take 3 deep breaths and refocus. We are the light. The light surrounds us. The light is within us. The light protects us. We are the light. Where there is fear, let us place light. Where there is loneliness, let us place light. Where there is hunger, let us place light. Where there is emptiness, let us place light. Where there is anger, let us place light. Where there is darkness, let us place light. Where there is discomfort, let us place light. Where a child has been lost, let us place light. We are the divine. We are the divine light of both masculine and feminine. The light is within us. The light surrounds us. The light protects us. We are the light. So mote it be. Okay. Now, where did I put my books? I know I brought them over. This can't be happening.
Yes.
I brought my important written notes for today because they have dates. I'm going to shut off this camera. You tell everybody what you got coming up. I'll be right back.
I wanted to say to Linda Bishop, I understand completely because I am facing a similar situation myself, about downsizing and getting rid of like crap. Like my husband died 23 years ago. I still have his sketchbooks. Why? Why? Anyway, what have I got coming up? Well, nothing until Tuesday, when it's Akashic Adventures. I'll be hosting this week, and it'll be simulcast on Diana's channel and on Viviani's channel as well. Next Thursday, on my show, which I guess I should tell you now, I've changed it. It never had a name, so I gave it a name. It's called Wings of Insight. Thursday, 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern on Wings of Insight. My guest will be Donna Marie, who is a fabulous reader. Akashic Records, Tarot, anything. She can read it. She is absolutely amazing. And then on Saturday the 9th, so that's a week from today, um, and it's the full moon at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. It'll be English. Yes. Okay. It'll be Gratitude Drives Abundance, another episode of Gratitude Drives Abundance with Gerald and Deb, Purple Elephant Deb H, and I. And in my notes, I have what we've forgotten. I don't know if that means we're all going to be using the same deck, or if that's the theme of the Gratitude Drives Abundance, or just exactly what's going on with that. But Gerald is, oh no, sorry, I'm hosting. Oh God, I forgot all about that. I'm glad I read this. Okay, fine. I guess I have work to do.
Don't you love these days?
I just can't, I've been so scattered that stuff has just fallen by the wayside. I didn't post the simulcast for this show to my channel until this morning. I am amazed to see people on my channel. Thank you so much for being there. I love you with all my heart.
Right?
Thank you, even though it was really late. So yeah, it's things are going to be a little up in the air for me for the next couple of weeks. I'm sorry. Please bear with me.
And for me too, because I have a hard time with this. So quickly, I want to say hello to Alice, Barbara, Jen B. Who else? Diane G. Callie Healer's here. Delphi Ross,
Aaron,
Dakota Jones, Tommy, can you hear me? Linda Bishop, did I say you? Angela Cardomancy. Oh my gosh, Callie Healer, Tommy, and everybody I've missed. Aaron O'Nugent, how you doing? Kelly McCord. So if I miss you, I'm sorry. And I'm terrible at that part right now. Bear with me. It's my maiden voyage. So what is women's handiwork?
I have a lot to say about women's handiwork. I'm sure you do too, Diana.
Me too.
The thing that strikes me the most about, or not the most, but one of the things that really just sort of hits me about women's handiwork is, okay, we needed tea towels, okay, and we needed things like bed linens, pillowcases, and sheets, and for a very, very long time, those were woven and given, like as a girl, as a young girl. Okay, if you're really poor, this didn't happen, okay? But if you were a little moneyed, as a young girl, you were taught the skills to be a house manager, to manage your household, to manage your money, to manage all of the things that go along with that, okay? Including, chickens and cows sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And cooking and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Depending on your station in life, that would look different. But one of the things that young girls always learned, they all learned how to sew, they all learned how to knit. Sometimes they learned to crochet, not necessarily, and sometimes they learned to make lace. But they all knew how to knit because you needed socks, in Northern Europe at least. You needed socks. They all learned how to weave. And somehow they all learned how to embroider. Now think about this. This is where you have to. Fabric was always very, very expensive. Up until the Industrial Revolution, with the introduction of mechanical looms, fabric was incredibly labor intensive and very, very expensive as a result. So things got used and reused. Dresses got taken apart and put back together differently. Let in and let out, or designed to fit your body's changing shape. And that's why you had corsets to show to do the shape of the the fashionable shape of the era, okay? And the dresses were just built around that shape. It was relatively easy to follow fashion in that way, even if you didn't have a lot of money. But what happened was, okay, so within all of this, so you have to make the bed sheets, you have to make the pillowcases, you have to do the tea towels and the towels and all the rest of that. And women had back-breaking labor, pregnant, cooking, you know, the labor of women has always been a crushing load. And I'm not even talking, I'm not going to even discuss that whether it was bigger or lesser than men's. I don't care. Both had a crushing load. I want to talk about women.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to talk about women right now. In the midst of all of this, and in the midst of whatever social stuff was going on as well, they wanted to make it beautiful.
Yep.
That's what
Well,
brings
and they also,
me to tears. They wanted it to be, it wasn't enough to have a tea towel, it had to be beautiful. So they embroidered it.
well, and also they, especially as time was marching on, they were raised at the idle hands of the devil's workshop. So you had to stay busy. There was never a moment, but also there was
With
no
no failing to relax.
there was no television, there was no radio, there was fire and candlelight, and at one time there was only fire. So all of this brings us back to sewing, and sewing began in the Stone Age
Yes.
because you use
We see there's archaeological digs have shown us bone needles with the hole in the end of them to sew the furs together.
and tree bark and
Yeah,
skin, and skin. The thread was tendons of the animals that had given the hide, or their vessels, and that would have been dried and tanned also, so that it would hold up and not just fall apart from the weather, because weather was brutal. So this began in the Stone Age. And what, it's the necessity that brings brilliance, right? Man needs and man figures out.
Yeah.
He started a fire that did well, but he couldn't go out hunting in a snowstorm if he didn't have some skins on. So he figured out that he could stay warm with the skins he was getting from the animals that he was eating.
Yeah.
And he found out that it tasted a whole lot better when it was cooked.
Yeah.
So that is the progression of man. So for a moment, let's just back up for a moment. Men's work and women's work, it's not that it should be so divided. It's working together. And it's not that we can't do each other's jobs. We can. But there is a stamina that goes with the gender, because we have organs that behave differently, and we have hormones that behave differently, and we have body structure that is different. And it isn't so much about height, but it's about the structure of the back. A man's back is structured like an upside down triangle. It's broad to carry the load. His shoulders are wide in order to hoist it up and carry it along. And did you see the video that I sent you about that guy who built his house out of earth and the trees around him? And I don't know how long it took him to build that. And then another guy just redid everything that was a workshop that was more than 100 years old. Took him 2 years to do it, but he used modern tools.
Yeah.
There's so many wonderful videos on YouTube of people using hand tools the way they did in the old days. When homes were built to not blow down with pinion and and holes, and then a nail into that. And nails had to be forged by hand.
Yeah.
So women could do this too, and some women could go just as long. But so we have this triangle, And the woman is the hourglass, the bottle of Coke, as they said, and something like
Not
it.
anymore.
Vive la différence, right? But we have broader hips automatically. We have birthing hips. And in that, we're meant to carry the load on our hips, which is, it's better designed for putting that baby right here because they can't all sit up there on your shoulders. It's fun when they're 3, but when they get to be 7, it's too hard. But when they get to be 7 and they're hanging on you, they're close enough to just wrap their hips, their arms around your hips. So all of that helped to establish how things, chores got divided. A woman got to a point where she was so pregnant, she can't be out there harvesting, and she can't be out there planting, and she can't be out there digging. You know, she needs to be in there getting pregnant again. So we can do the same job. We can help each other out in the same job, but we are built stamina wise and bone structure. Even, and this I learned from my bowling pro. I used to bowl a lot. I used to carry a 200 average. Don't tell anybody I said that. Now I can't even pick it up, right? But a man's elbows face outward. A woman's elbows have a tendency to fit closer to the body.
Yes.
And that in itself shows you the difference in how you carry things.
Yeah.
And by riding a motorcycle, a woman's center of gravity is in a different place from a man's. So when I was on my Sportster, I hated every minute of it. Don't tell it my husband I said that, because I never felt secure. I was up too high. But when I got my Springer, oh, that was the bike for me. I never needed another motorcycle after that. And now my riding days are done. So thank you for all the good times that I had, you know. So those are the things that help to designate the separation of chores. It had nothing to do with who should wear a skirt and who should wear pants, because if you needed it and it was the only one available, you put it on, you didn't care, nobody minded, right?
Yeah.
So it all started with the Stone Age, especially back then. They were all wearing skirts because who thought of making pants?
Well,
so everything was done by hand, and weaving hadn't even been thought of yet. In fact, it took 20,000 years for that to happen. Because think how far back the Stone Age was. We're no longer walking around like Cro-Magnon, but we still don't know how to talk. Anyways, so what about the sewing machine? I know you are proficient in sitting with your sewing machine.
Well, I think that it was Levi Singer who got the first commercial sewing machine going in like 1870. No, you're saying no? No? Okay.
No, I went deep diving. I was hoping I could surprise you with this. Okay. May I go on, and then we'll get back to Singer, because I have my Singer treadle, and
Yeah.
Anyways, so the very first invented and patented sewing machine was made by Charles Frederick Wiesenthal in 1755.
Holy
Yep. He lived in England, but he came here to the States, and he lived in Baltimore, Maryland, where he died. And he also invented the double pointed needle with the point at one end and the eye at the other, and made it so much easier to do this.
Yeah.
Now you can imagine, pardon me, how primitive compared to the sewing machines of today, especially, but even to that treadle sewing machine that his was, I don't believe he had a foot pump on it. I couldn't find any remnant sketchings or anything of it. Certainly no photographs. But anyways, I know that it was wood and that the shuttle was worked this way
Oh,
in a little wooden box.
yeah.
And that was the only thing I could see. Now, the only reason why I know that is because the next person to come along to reinvent that was Barthélemy de Monnier from France, who reinvented it in 1829 and got it patented in 1830. And that very same year, he thought this was the first machine to be reinvented since that other one, right? Since the other one was out. But in 1830, he got the patent. And that same year, he started the first um, with partners, the first machine-based commercial clothing manufacturing business. And all I could think of is, I'm the man who manufactures. I manufacture things all day long from Mr. Rogers. So he thought he was the next guy to come along. For 100 years, everybody thought he was the next guy to come along. But no, no, no. There was somebody else before that. In 1790, Thomas Saint is his name. He reinvented the original and he got a patent, but he didn't tell anybody anything about it for 100 years. In 1874, it was found somewhere in the British stuff, you know. But if you go to the Albert and Victoria Museum, you can see Bartholomew's
Sewing machine.
or Bartholomew's sewing machine. But it did cause a ruckus because the next year, 150 tailors showed up at the plant because the plant had gotten the contract, for lack of a better word, to make the military uniforms. Mm-hmm. And that was the tailor's job. 150 of them showed up. A riot began, and somebody who worked in the plant called one of the military guys that he was also in the same brigade with, and they brought all the military, and the fight began, and 75 ran away and 75 were thrown in jail with sentences that lasted from 30 days to 80 days. And then only one guy, whose name was Jacob, was acquitted in all of that. So there's your first riot over manufacturing and all that business, right? Somebody making big business out of it. But then Darling Singer came along.
Well, Singer actually did do some innovations. He's the one who had the problem, was trying to crack the problem of getting the thread, getting the bottom thread and the upper thread to lock together in a stitch. And in a dream, this is a famous story about Singer, the solution came to him in a dream to put the hole for the thread at the end of the needle, on the pointy part of the needle, instead of up above, which is where it had been, and which was causing all the problems with, because he could see in his head that it could be engineered more effectively, that the mechanics of it could be more streamlined and efficient. And so instead of having the bobbin go back and forth, it could spin around. And so that's what he was trying, that was the problem he was trying to crack. And the dream gave him the solution by putting the thread in the hole for the thread in the end of the needle. Mm-hmm. And we use it to this day because it was the most efficient solution to that problem. Yeah.
Oh, and the bobbins are different now too. I have my grandmother's treadle.
Yeah.
And in there, the bobbins are still long and thin. But the needle does have the eye at the bottom, so he had already made that progress with it.
Yeah,
I still have all the feet for it and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, but that was the thing. I mean, when I was growing up in the 50s, every woman I knew, my aunts, my mother. Now, my mother did not like to sew. She it was something she didn't like doing. But my grandmother was a very accomplished seamstress. My aunts, my cousins, um, and even in my birth family, because I've done the research, even in my birth family, my birth mother was an extremely accomplished seamstress. Both my sisters are, my birth sisters are. um, you know, it was something every you were taught. You took home ec. If you didn't learn it at home from your mother or your grandmother, you were taught in home ec how to sew. Usually the first project was in like grade 3, and you made an apron, and you put, you know, cross stitch out of gingham, and you cross stitch
Yeah.
embroidery on it. And then in grade 4 or 5, you made a pair of socks. And I mean,
Yeah.
this kind of stuff, nobody does that anymore, as far as I know.
I do. I taught my kids,
Well, I did too. I taught my kids too. My son made his own backpack
but
when
I went to the school because it was eighth grade. I think it was in their eighth grade. Yeah, because it was the last year that they were in the middle school in Virginia, and so they had a community project that they had to do, and the Ebola outbreak was going very, very strong in Africa. So what I taught them to do was crochet, and everybody had to crochet a square, and
yeah,
so they all went home and finished crocheting their square, brought them to me, and I put them together.
yeah,
And it was cattywampus and beautiful. I mean, it was a beautiful piece of art. My son has the pictures for it. And we contacted the Salvation Army, and they came to us and sent it to Somalia for people who had Ebola. And then they showed us the kid who was wrapped up in it. And I mean, it was a treasure to behold. And they stuck to it because it was something hands-on, something that they had never considered doing before. I mean, weaving potholders was long a dead art. They weren't doing that stuff anymore. You know, so it was a good project for those kids,
yeah,
and triggered some to continue on.
yeah,
Rosie Greer.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah,
So, and in that story of the outbreak, the riot with the tailors, right there, that tailors were men, because they're measuring men's parts. And by then it's like, oh, kind of stuff, right? So men sew just like women sew. And here we go, the coming together in divine creation, in divine manifestation, not just for yourself, but for others as well. Okay, it's under the guise of business and you're earning a measly paycheck, but you're getting paid. So again, we have this, right?
it's an interesting sort of progression. In the cases where new technology, industrial technology has come in, it's always been the men who were the first to be hired to work in the factories. However, when women came along, wages dropped and it became women's work. Look at typing, for example. When a typewriter was first introduced, the operators were typewriter operators, and they were men. But then women started learning how to type.
And you're talking about the progress of man, because by then we're talking about the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah. Oh, the typewriters weren't until like 1908 or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Just at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Just like, my grandmother, born in 1896, she was the first telephone operators. Nyan, nyan, nyan. She still talks like that, as they did way back when she couldn't shake the numbers. And it got to be a joke. So I'm sure she.
Erin made another insightful comment. She said, "Men are chefs, women are cooks." Exactly. That's
Oh, yeah.
exactly what happens.
The paycheck shows you.
Yeah,
You can be the sous chef.
yeah, yeah, um, and I mean the same thing happens all over the place when women start moving into an industry, the wages drop and men start leaving.
Yeah. So, and then let's talk about crochet for a minute, because that is a hard one whose history is to follow. Because think about it, you can do that with your finger.
Yeah, and that's probably where it started.
Exactly.
Making nets.
And actually, it's believed to have not been used widely. I'm sure they used it with fishing nets and all kinds of things, but not used widely until the 16th century, right? So that's the 1500s. And this is in Europe, in Central Europe, trying to take credit for this. But in reality, the invention of the hook is harder to discover. And when you think about it, it goes back to earlier roots that connect with China and Arabia.
Oh, Mangled Unicorn said, my grandma was the first woman in her factory to operate the metal cutting machine all day on her own. She did it out of spite because they said a woman couldn't do it.
Red lipstick.
They called her Marge the Sarge. Yes, go for it, Marge.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, spite.
CJ says, I heard crochet came from making knights. Well,
chainmail. Nah,
chainmail.
That's not how chainmail is made. It was never.
There are separate links.
Yeah, they're separate links, and they're forged together or melted together. Okay, yeah. As separate links. There's nothing crochet about it. And
like we would use a soldering gun now, they would use a point.
Yeah.
To heat it.
Yeah. Just to forge it together to make it close. Right. So crochet never had any part in making armor, because I can tell you, because I have crocheted metal wire with gems on it, like little gemstones. I have crocheted those together. I figured out how to crochet backwards, like forwards on one row and backwards on the other row, so that the gems sat on the front, so you had a solid face of and they're not like gems, okay? These are like semi-precious stones that are just chip beads with little holes in them. That's all. They're not like anything fancy. They're very pretty, but they're not like fancy pantsy, okay? But it is extremely difficult to do. And you run into a problem with the wire having to be fine enough to go through these things and also not break.
Yeah, so because they will snap easily.
Oh yeah, it snaps very easily. And then so in order to prevent that, you have to anneal it. But then if you want to anneal it, then you run into like, how do you anneal the silver wire with fire when you have all these rocks that are with it? And so it was a problem that I couldn't solve. And so I just, made pretty bangles and don't wear them. I just look at them and go, oh my God, it's so shiny. It's so pretty. I just love it. Ooh, ooh, ooh. But, the more you try to put it on and take it off, like, yeah.
Well, and consider that bone was used as the first needle. I would imagine that just using a bone to fix fishing nets. Yes. Long before the metal needle had been invented. Yes. in that 3rd and 4th century of the world. Yeah. You'd have just put a little barb on the end of a piece of bone that you're using for sewing, and you can use it as a hook, right? So I'm sure that it has to think about the greatest fishing industries that there are. They all had to have something, from the Vikings down to Arabia. There had to be something.
Yeah, so, there absolutely was.
Right. And the fact that women invent things too, and so do men. And just in the fact that we both invent It's because we know how to do the job and we know what's going to make it work better. Whether you're using hand tools to make build a home, or hand tools to put accoutrements into your clothing.
Yeah.
So, and since hands and fingers do it, that's your first tool. That's your first set of forks. Spaghetti. So, and then tatting. Tatting's another one, right? That brings me to. So, an industrial bobbin would be something like this, right? On a machine.
Yeah.
This is an old for a jacquard.
Yeah.
Okay.
A
For an
jacquard,
old machine.
yeah.
An old machine.
Yeah.
Late 1800s, very early 1900s. But when it comes to, well, I'll save that for lace making. Do you remember the days of,
Yes.
I have such a beautiful collection of them and nobody can touch them. I'm not using them for anything. My sons and their wives will have to figure out what to do with that. But what was I going to talk about next? Tatting. I had a bone shuttle. Now that's gotten lost in the move. I don't know where it went, but that was my grandmother's shuttle for tatting.
Yeah.
She had a bone shuttle, and it's a very narrow little shuttle that you wrap the thread around and you stick it through, and you're making these little tiny things that, you know, just to trim your collar with, or to trim your pillowcases with, or to make the hanky nice, because that was all the refinery, you know. I mean, and nobody, it wasn't that they didn't try to keep up with the Joneses as time went by, but it was also entertaining. It kept you from being bored and drinking to death. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And then there is placemaking, which goes right along with that tatting. Now I have some
Tatting is a form of lace making. Yeah.
Well, and I have some very tiny little bobbins.
Mm.
Used by my grandmother, said they were bobbins. Somebody tried to tell me that they were toothpicks, but these are little tiny bobbins that you would use for little tiny projects, for just small little projects where you didn't have all of these things, where you had to load up a lot of thread. And or just to add to a bobbin, so you had control over the quick use of thread, as depending on how your pattern for weaving was going, right? And they're all of them are ivory.
Yeah.
So sorry for the elephants that had to pass them on to me.
Walrus, or a whale,
or a walrus, or a whale bone. Yeah, some kind of a bone.
Yeah.
And then knitting. Your favorite thing to do. What do you got? What do you got in your bag of tricks? What is your project right now?
My knitting project, I'm still trying to finish that baby sweater.
Okay.
And I'm I'm weaving in the ends.
Oh, yeah, that's the worst part of all those jobs. Crocheting.
I'm going to have to move my ass and get that going, because baby's going to be too big for the sweater any minute now. Yeah. Knitting is at least 2,000 years old, because we have the remnants of socks.
Yay! I'm glad you said that.
We have the remnants of socks that were in an Egyptian tomb.
Yep.
Okay. And
they were
bright red, and they're knitted out of wool, okay, like out of sheep fiber, sheep wool, and they're knitted out of, okay, this is the archaeologist's take on it, or the textile specialist, whatever, the scientist take on it.
They were on a form too. Did you know that?
Yeah, and they're made out of the style of knitting, or the type of knitting that we would today call Scandinavian nail binding. If I hope I said that correctly, but it's a very specific type of, very specific way of using the needles and the yarn together, the fiber together, to create this very solid fabric that's not very stretchy at all. And in fact, it would make more like a boot. That those socks are more like
Sure.
boots.
Well, that also, it certainly makes sense
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
that's
after the flood, but the sand is hot.
Linda Bishop points out the Utsi the Iceman had on a pair of socks. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, there's been lots of documentation from Bogman too, because
Yeah,
I mean,
the bog bodies, and the weaving that they had on, and the way that fiber was manipulated to create garments. It was there's a young, the body of, I think, about a 16-year-old girl, a bog body that was discovered, and they recreated. You can find it on YouTube. They
yeah,
recreated her entire wardrobe, which was very cool.
she had a
And
red braid too.
yeah,
There was
so all of that stuff, there's a lot of archaeology that is that kind of archaeology, textile archaeology, that is easy to find on YouTube if
yeah.
you're interested. Yeah.
Mangled Unicorn says, I can't read I need new glasses. Vikings used.
Use the seawater to make the hides that they make they tan the hides. That's right. They use
Yep.
seawater to tan the hides that they made their clothes English out of. They made it hard enough to deflect swords, but it stayed light, unlike heavy duty armor. Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Lots of very inventive ways to get what you needed from the environment around you.
necessity.
Really incredibly creative. I mean, those guys must have been experimenting all the freaking time.
All
What's
the time.
going to happen if we do this? Oh, look, far out. It's
This
really
is-
hard, but it does
So,
weigh a ton.
the samurai, his armor was not metal. His armor was layers and layers of hides.
Yeah,
All the what do they call it? Fused together somehow. This thick, and there's no sword going to penetrate that. It was better than the armor that the knights wore, because it might have been just as heavy, but it took a lot to try and penetrate that. You had to have an axe and go after a guy's head,
yeah,
where a sword could be run through if
yeah,
it were sharp enough, because they were made out of the same materials.
yeah.
So those socks are also in Victoria Albert Museum.
In Albert, yeah.
And it's
That's on my bucket list of places to go, is to spend just a week
yeah.
at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and then another week at the British Library. And then another week at the British Museum, okay? And honestly, that's really all I want to see of London. I don't care about Buckingham Palace or the changing of the guard or any of that stuff. Yeah, just let me loose in the museums. I'm a happy girl.
Well, let me tell you this, because maybe you don't know this, but maybe you do, because you're pretty good at all your knitting stuff. There's no doubt about it. A machine for socks had been invented in 1589.
Not so
To this day, I don't understand how you make a machine that does the knitting, because how do you end that off?
Well, you have to do the binding off manually, okay? But the big part of, like, why that was so important for women specifically is that, I mean, it takes a good week to make a pair of socks, unless you're working at it full time, and then it'll take you 2 days. But a lot of time was spent knitting socks. Everybody needed socks. And they didn't last as long as your nightshirts or your linens, okay? They just didn't last as long.
They got wet, they got sweaty, they got salty, they had toes poking through them.
Yeah.
And that's where this
the darning is. Okay. Yeah.
And to this day, it's the best tool for mending sock toes, sock heels. shoulders,
Yeah.
things that are round.
Things that are round. That's right. They're very, very handy. And yes, Dakota Victoria and Albert Museum does have some really interesting shorts on YouTube. And I am subscribed to the channel because I am that nerd. Okay.
I'm going to be that. I am that nerd because I went digging, but I didn't ever think about looking for videos from them on YouTube.
Yeah.
So knitting needles, the type we understand today, they were invented in the Middle East and the Mediterranean around the 11th, 12th century.
Yeah.
And I think that was brought to somewhere from Italy.
Yeah. There's a big knitting tradition in Turkey. They have a whole bunch of, um, a lot of unusual, well, to Western eyes, to my eyes, when I found out about this, they have unusual ways of starting and finishing knitted pieces that I had never encountered, and I found absolutely fascinating. They purl differently.
Yes.
Just a whole, yeah, just a whole, like it's not a different technique. Well, yes, the technique is different, but you end up with knitted fabric that is familiar to all of us as being
Right.
knitted fabric.
My grandmother was always trying to teach me how to knit the European way. And I just automatically did what she called, oh, you're continental.
Yeah, that's how I taught myself to knit continental style because it's much quicker, more efficient,
Yeah.
and I get a much nicer tension. Like it evens out your tension like
Thank you.
you would not believe.
Especially when you go to block something, because that other one has got a twist in it and
Yeah.
that's locked.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really well, it's just my favorite way to. I was in my mid-30s when I saw somebody on the bus. I was standing and I saw her knitting continental style, and I went, oh,
That makes sense.
right through a row, and she whipped right through the other row, and I went, yeah, I want to learn how to do that. So I just very carefully watched her, and I went home and painstakingly, okay, because you have to learn how to do it, and then once you've got it, like you're whipping right through. I love it. I will never ever go back to yarding that that yarn over the needle again. It's just, yeah, no way. It's way less efficient.
Did you bring some show and tells?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I brought some show and tells. You guys might remember was it last week or the week before, I was going on about women's work on my show and about how little value it had and how beautiful it was. And so I go to uh, antique stores, secondhand stores, vintage places, and I try to rescue as much as I can. Most of it's put away in boxes, okay? I don't have a lot of it accessible, but there are some special things that I want to share with you. And since I have never done this before, bear with me. I'm going to try to be fancy about it, okay? And I'm going to use a second camera, she said, hopefully. She said, you know, yes, hopefully. Okay, so let me just get my second camera going here. Don't wait. I'll put that there. And because this is really special stuff. These are linens that I bought in Ireland, in Cork, in in an antique store. I was told that they were they were bought from a convent that closed down. And this is cut work. This is a very special and very intricate kind of cut work. It's, oh my, that is coming out nice. Okay, oops, sorry. No, I don't want you to look at the mess that is my living room. Okay, so do you see there's a black tablecloth behind this. So those plain squares, that's the actual fabric. And it's pulled work and cut work kind of combined. And those thick wavy threads that are coming off of the plain squares, those are the actual threads of the fabric itself. This is linen. Now, those flowers, and I'm going to try to see if I can get closer up. Those flowers are threads that are woven with sewing thread. the pulled threads are woven with the sewing threads, and you can see here where those threads were attached and brought across and woven through and then wrapped around and around and around to make those flowers. The flowers aren't actually fabric. Okay, so that's that. That's that one little corner piece. This is a tea cloth. This is a tea cloth. The center of it, oh man, no, everything's falling apart. The center of it is a similar sort of design, but again, you see that little spider web? Look how it's like spiders that are just, wait, move it over here. Yeah, there, see? It's like a spider web. It's so beautiful.
I just love this work
Done.
so much.
And this pulled work, well, it's a combination of pulled work and embroidery that is just astonishing to me. This is made out of heavy duty linen. I call it ecclesiastical linen because it's the same kind of stuff that was used in on the altar cloths and so on. And these must have been like end cuts from the bolts of linen that they would have had for the altar cloths. That the nuns, this embroidery was done by nuns, and so number one, it's freaking perfect in every stitch, and number two, every stitch was a prayer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is how they worked. This is how they did their this is what it was. That's one. This is I did have three. Sorry, let me just wave this around and really make you crazy. Hello. I did have three, but I gave one to my son. Where's the other one? Here it is. Okay. This one is very different. Hold on. This one is solid. It's not cut work. It's not pulled thread work. It's plain old embroidery, and you probably have a hard time seeing it because it's, oh my God, it's yellow on white. Okay, here we go. Can you see that?
Yeah,
it's satin stitch, and it's again on that heavy ecclesiastical embroidery linen, and it's just gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
It is, again, entirely satin stitch with a little bit of back stitch in there, a little bit of embroidery. Look at those little dots. Perfectly evenly placed.
Are there any French knots there? Were in that?
No French knots. Those are weeny little tiny dots. Okay, I'll compare them to my finger. Look at the size of the little tiny dots.
There you go. That's
better. And they're satin stitch. Oh my God, hello, satin
I mean,
stitch.
and that you have to do that, you have to count how many threads you've got in there.
Exactly. And I want you to gaze upon the back.
Yeah. Oh, that was another thing. My grandmother.
The back has to be just as nice as the front. Yeah. She
would make me rip it all out if the back did not look as good as the front.
Yeah. And there's, hold on for a second. Oh yeah, here's one more. These are all, by the way, tea cloths that are 1 meter by 1 meter approximately. Now this one is again different. This is one that I got in a vintage store. It's made out of hanky linen. You can tell it's got way more drape to it, and it's very pretty, very prettily embroidered. You know, very very simple but very pretty. I really like it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the front-facing camera, and I get out of here. There we go. So these are all like 1 meter by 1 meter, so 3 feet approximately by 3 feet, and there I have about 8 more.
Oh, I have,
and I don't use them. Okay, I do not have a lifestyle where tea cloths feature in any way, shape, or form. But they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. Oh,
I have a passion for table linens, so I have quite a collection from late 1800s bobbin lace.
Oh.
I have an antique Stickley Brothers dining room set, And this was the norm. My grandmother and great grandmother had made these things, not the ones that I have, but this was especially when Busha was still in Poland. And her sister was a nun in Poland making the pulled thread embroidery. And another one, this is a much bigger one, and the work is so much finer in the open work.
Beautiful.
In the open work.
That's beautiful. And that's bobbin lace.
Yep, that's bobbin lace. And here, I'm just going to show one more. But I have doilies and tablecloths. I have more tablecloths than I have tables. But I can't help it. I have such a passion for them. Now, when you showed that pulled thread, I want to tell everybody that I inherited my great-grandmother's pulled thread tablecloth. And it already had a repair on it. And then I had to keep repairing it because it was hanky linen. And it just kept deteriorating. Think about it. When she was washing it, she was washing it. And, you know, and putting it on a stretcher to dry so it would dry even, right? So what I did was to begin to use it in altered art journaling. And I cut salvageable pieces and I dipped them into wallboard paste and pulled it out and, you know, kept opening it as much as I can to make sure that it didn't get stuck in the open work. And then it dried hard and it doesn't flake off. And it's permanent. And I started using it for altered art. So as that pattern that Linda had been showing you, it is the same thing going on. It's a little bit different, but it is the same thing going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same technique. Absolutely.
Right. And then I used the same paste and did this angel with a stencil on it. And then I'll just show you one more page because the edging off of antique, after I've ripped them to nothing because I sleep on them, I keep the edging off of all that stuff. And whoops, wrong page, sorry. Oh, Zentangle. In this page, I use the edging the same way.
Yeah.
You know, and I made a pocket out of it, and then all of this stuff is inside of here. Right?
Brilliant.
Oh, it all fell out. And just one more because I cut up everything, every piece I had, so you can really see the open work here with this behind it. And this one was a Alice in Wonderland journal. So the book is filled with Alice in Wonderland stuff. And pages that flip open.
Diana,
Pockets and, you
know. That is just incredible.
Thank you. So
that's so beautiful.
Recycling whatever you can. That handiwork. Marguerite is here right now. Hi, Busha. Is something that her sister probably made that one. And she kept it forever. My grandmother didn't get to have it until Busha passed away in 1956. And she was born in 1854. So she was 98 years old. My grandmother lived to be 102.
Yeah.
So I just...
Yeah.
We need to do a show on men's stuff too, because boy...
I think it should be a show on men's stuff. Not us. I think it should be the men.
But we're trying to reunite.
Raven, I know you're here. I know you're watching. I'm talking.
But we can do the same work. We just don't have the same stamina.
Oh, come here somewhere.
We get hungry faster.
Can't do anything without snacks.
Right.
At least I can.
Is there anything else that we should be doing before we say goodbye? We've been on just...
I want to encourage all of you who are listening to go raid your local Salvation Army, your local vintage shops, antique stores, your hospital auxiliary thrift stores, and rescue those beautiful, like I didn't bring them out, but I have embroidered pillowcases, okay, that are and with a crochet trim, for crying out loud. And they don't have to be beautiful. This is the thing that gets me, is that human urge to create beauty.
Yeah.
That, that it's something that humans have, that we share, men and women alike.
And
That
the
you
same thing goes
make
in.
something, but you can make it beautiful. And it's a lot of work, but they were willing to do it just to make it beautiful. Who
You think,
cares if
right?
your pillowcase has like fancy pants roses embroidered on it with, pink crocheted edging, or worse, tatted edging.
It's for
And
you.
yeah, just
You're
because
putting your head on it.
yeah, it's because it's yours and you want it to be beautiful. Oh my God, please go out, and they are so cheap. Do you know what I paid for those tablecloths? The one this one here. This one here was $7 uh, at a vintage store here in Surrey. Now, these ones from Ireland were 30 euros a piece. And when I said I would take all three, he lowered the price to 25 euros each. So 75 euros is about 130 Canadian dollars. Cheap, 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 cheap. Oh my God, so
Well,
cheap.
yeah. Especially when you start trying to put an age on it, right?
Well, I have no idea how old these are. He couldn't tell me. He just said they came from a convent near Cork. And he couldn't even tell me the name of the convent, because I think it wasn't the owner, it was a clerk. And he didn't know the name of the convent, but he knew where it was. And he obviously had no idea how old these were, but they were not recent. I don't think these don't feel recent to me. These feel like maybe wartime, maybe 1940s, 1950s is what they feel like to me. So not like ancient antique, but like not
Except for that pulled thread.
that.
That pulled thread is going to be much older.
I think so. I think this is more like World War One,
Well, or
or even maybe
late
earlier. Yeah,
end of the 1800s, probably.
yeah, could be. Yeah, you could
It
be
could
right.
even be older because you don't know who had it first.
The nuns did
I
for sure.
know, but I
Yeah.
mean, which nun had it first to make it?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not a new thing. That's been around for centuries.
Yeah, and these again, these are tea cloths that the nuns made for themselves. They didn't have to be pretty. I mean, they didn't have to make them pretty, because a tea cloth, you just put something down on a table, but no, they wanted it to be beautiful, and it was an act of prayer as well.
Exactly, because what are you putting on there? The
Yeah,
body and blood of Christ.
yeah,
Even if it didn't go to church, it went to their cemetery,
yeah,
and every meal was
yeah.
done. So, well, I think, we're still over an hour, but only under an hour and 10 minutes. So we're going to sign off for now. Love everybody. Thank you so much for coming. See you again tomorrow, hopefully. If not, see you on the replay. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye bye. Okay, so we're not leaving yet because we're going to chat.